Welcome to Channel AMEC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Gao Yang, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested about migrating to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell on the side, so once we have all the updates and news, you'll be the first one getting all the inside. Now today is a very special day, which we are heading into, I think, the third week of July. Obviously we are in a new financial year, and perhaps a new policy should be out, and the new quota, the temporary increase of skilled migrants number, should be implemented very soon, as we have feel and receive an email this morning. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if your mates and friends would love to get updated about any news and migration pathway in Australia, this is the channel to be. So I've got an email from Tasmania. Now, not from the federal government yet. However, we're looking into Tasmania's, perhaps the new policy. It may give us some hints and also view of the future skilled migration in Australia. So let's jump in there and have a look. Bear in mind, this is only a newsletter. The actual policy is not yet to be announced because the quota has not been released by the federal government, and I suspect a real increase of a skilled migration quota and number will be there, as they have promised by the Prime Minister of Australia and also the Treasurer of Australia. So let's jump in there. Now, this is, you probably cannot find this at all from the internet, and this is actually my email, which has the title and subject saying that the update of 2022 and 23 Tasmania Skilled Migration State Nomination Program. Beauty. Okay, what now? Question here: why is it Tasmania first? Now, very good question. I have no answer to that. In fact, I have been searching on every state and territories migration website. Unfortunately, none of them had actually released any glimpse of information at all, but Tasmania. Well, let's have a look anyway. It may be interest you or not, but let's have a look. Okay, so Tasmania Skilled Migration State Nomination Program for the new year, and this is some update on the 18th of July, which is right today. Now, when did I receive this? This is 2 hours ago. Now, that's very updated information here. So, okay, the new requirement. Now, this is the thing. This is exactly what we want to see, because this new requirement will actually show the criteria of Tasmania State. Now, I think it can also pave how the other state and territory will actually look like. But obviously, Tasmania would have a more relaxed policy due to it's a regional base. It's an island of the mainland of Australia. So anyway, let's have a read. Tasmania is currently awaiting confirmation from the Australian government on our nomination allocation. So that means they don't have the number yet, but they're waiting for it. And they're ready because they are now telling us the criteria, the requirement for skilled migration to be in the state of Tasmania. Once the allocations received for 2020 and 23, Tasmania's Skilled Migration State Nomination Program will open with some different requirement and process as below. So the key feature of the new program, here we go. This is the exciting part. Now, for the graduate. Now, graduate, what does it mean? Graduate, well, doesn't mean you graduate from anywhere around the world. It means you graduate in Tasmania. So they want you to go to Tasmania to study and be an international student. So if you graduated from Tasmania, no course or occupation restriction or mandatory employment requirements. Wow. Now that is a big wow for us, because that means there's no, as long as you go there and study, there's no specific course and there's no specific occupation. That means every occupation and or mandatory employment. So you don't need to get a job offer, you don't need to get any employment required to be employed there. You're there. So that's a very good one. Permanent pathway for PhD student. Now what does this mean? So if you go to Tasmania and study to become a doctor, get a PhD degree, you get PR straight away. So what does this tell us from the first phrase? That means these ones, as long as you go study there, you're likely to get 491, not 190. 190 is only reserved for the PhD graduates. Okay, now skilled employee. So who's gonna be the skilled employee? That's gonna be either you have been employed, sponsored by a Tasmanian employer, and you hold perhaps a working visa, or perhaps a working holiday visa, or perhaps you have graduated and you did not get those. You did not fit into these requirements, but you're actually being employed in Tasmania. So skilled employee, an expanded list of occupation. Now we're going back to the occupation previously. Now obviously we cannot access to that, the previous occupation. There's a TSOL, I believe, Tasmania Skilled Occupation List. So they are going to expand it out. Wow, that's crazy. I mean, the TSOL already including a lot of occupation. If they further expand it, I think that will mean almost every occupation there. So compared to what we have saw for the Western Australia's occupation, I think this is going to be a much better occupation list. An employer eligible for permanent subclass 190, no occupation required for 491. So what does that mean? So there are a specific required occupation list that fit into 190. Other ones, that means any occupation, you go to 491. So as long as you graduate and get a work, great, you're in. Inclusion of part-time employment and meet work experience requirements. So not just the full-time, they're getting part-time. Now what does this tell us? Again, by the end of this video, so make sure you watch it until the very end. I will summarize what this all means for us and for you. All right. Subcontracted with related skill assessment, including skill employment pathway. So that's very good. You don't have to be employed by someone else. You can be contracted. Okay, that's very good because previously you cannot be a contracted person. You are required to be either hold a permanent job offer or something like that. So now they are all expanding that as well. So that's very good. You can be self-employed as well. So if it's subcontractors, usually self-employed. Okay, for business operators, extension of qualified business operating time for 6 to 12 months for business operation, which commences after 15 April 2022. So that's I think that's trying to say for the SBO. So if you graduate and get your 45 visa and you be innovative enough to have a small business opened in or established in Tasmania, extension of qualifying operation time, so that more relaxed. Again, that's what they're trying to say, from 6 to 12 months for business operation, which commence after. I think they're trying to say is your business has to be operated not just for 6 months, but needed to be there for 12 months in order to lodge a 491 SBO pathway. Introduction of a new personal business income requirement. Personal business income requirement at the minimum 80% of TSMIT. So that's the you have to. That's why they're saying they're trying to. You own a business and you need to have that business running for 12 months, okay? And then you need to pay yourself, okay? You need to pay yourself at least $43,120. So that you got to be taxed, and the government will pay income from tax. Okay, for long-term resident, now what does that mean? Long-term resident, this is probably extracted from how the ACT had operated in the past. So you probably be in Tasmania as a high school student and then go through bachelor, master, and then 485. You've been there for long enough to be categorized a long-term resident. They're giving you a better chances to migrate. So 3 points here: a new nomination pathway for candidates who live in Tasmania. Now you can be on the employment visa. So it's going to be 457 or 482 for 8 years, perhaps for 5 to 7 years, okay, for an extended period and establishment of an employment or business. So that means you probably can, well, I think employment better. How do you get business? I mean, if you're established business, you probably will somehow get other type of visa. Qualifying resident period for at least 3 years. Now that's not many, that's not long. For permanent subclass 190 and 2 year for provisional 491. So that's very short time. I mean, if you go, if you just study a bachelor, you meet that requirement. So I doubt what this will actually be a point actually be added on, rather than, because every bachelor graduate or master graduate will actually fit these requirements. Business operators were eligible for 190 if they have lived in Tasmania for 2 years and run eligible business successfully for 2 years. Well, now what does that mean? Now that's potentially can it be if you're coming with 1AA visa and you meet the requirement to be nominated 190, but you need to pass all English and stuff like that, operate business 2 years, and that's fine. Well, that's great. I mean, this is something, it's very new. I mean, 2 or 3 years, that's really nothing. But again, I think the criteria comes out will be good, because that will be challenging all the other states and territories and making them to make more and better policy. So as we can see here at this point in time, the door of migration is wide opening up. Okay, let's continue. For overseas candidates, so if you're not in Australia, no occupation restriction. Wow. Where a candidate has a job offer, so you can be any occupation. More invitation to apply nomination for skill select where candidate have skill need by Tasmania business, new industry skill need profile to help potential candidate tailor their skill select EOI and increase chances of invitation. For all candidates, simplify eligibility. Well, that means easier criteria. Wow, that's great. Okay, invitation only. Again, well, that's the same, because every state is invitation only. Even the federal states is invitation only. More clear defined exclusion and exception, clear set published priority attributes. So these attributes will be, they're looking at the duration of your employment skill, connection to employment, skill assessment, blah, blah, blah. I think this is the general stuff. As you can see, basically, every skill migrants will have this kind of stuff, and they are taking some of the elements actually from a copy from ACT, which is good, because they're taking on the length of residence as attribute as well. Okay, so 2021-22. Now we're not gonna bother on this one anymore. So this is all the news. Now let's summarize this. Now what does this tell us? Now basically it tells us that there is going to be a lot more quota coming out in 2022 and 23. Why can I say that? Because as you can see, the new pathway that coined by Tasmanian government, it is certainly much easier and expanded occupation, a wide range of attributes to be added in, meaning that it's easier to migrate. Now, if it's going to be easier to migrate, that means more people will come in. If no more people to come in, the increase of skill migration quota is definitely going to be there. Now, how do we see this in reflect to all the other state and territory around Australia? So there's going to be Queensland, Northern Territory, South Australia, Western Australia, New South Wales, Victoria. Now, obviously, I think it's going to be a very competitive between the state to actually fight for those international students to come into their state to study. So previously, the Western Australia, South Australia, and also Queensland does have that kind of proportion, in ways that if you study in Queensland, study in Victoria or South Australia, they are more likely to add more attribute into your invitation. So I think this basically means more welcome and more numbers of quota will come in. And bear in mind, Tasmania is one of the smallest economy state in Australia. If their policy is that open, I think all the other states will be I will be very hopeful and helpful to actually see what's going to come up with all the other states' policy and criteria. Anyway, should you have more questions or query, more than welcome to leave comment right down below. And I see you next video. Goodbye.